Second example I have is 9/11, right? After 9/11 happened, it takes about 30 extra minutes, maybe even an extra hour than before just to go through the airport, right? Why is that?
No trust.
There's no trust, right? So now you gotta waste a lot of time and it costs a lot more to fly because you gotta pay all these people, all these watchdogs, all this equipment to just get on a plane, right? They don't trust us, right? So there's another example, right? Low trust environment, a lot of time, higher costs. Now, the third example is something more localized, I guess. And there's a really smart business owner in New York City. He ran a little coffee shop, and he realized that he had a bottleneck, right? A lot of people would be showing up at his coffee cart at like 9 in the morning or whatever time in the morning, and he's trying to sell pastries and coffee at the same time. And he realized that he's losing a lot of money. So he was really smart, and he just did a self-serve station, $2, fill up your own coffee. And what he found was people liked being trusted. So people would be tipping him more, and they would be serving themselves, and they'd be happy, right? They extended his trust to his customers, and his customers extended the trust back to him. And as a result, he got much more profit and money, and also decreased time, right? So those are three very solid examples of how trust can really affect your business. So can we all agree that trust is important to our businesses?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? All right, cool. So now I'm going to talk about what is trust, right? It's a very, very strange topic, right? I actually studied it a lot just because I realized this, for me, as young as I look, not a lot of people are going to trust me with what I do, right? So I've actually even studied that at a biological level. I'm not going to talk about that, but oxytocin is produced in your brain and it sends signals to you. It's like, ooh, I don't trust this guy. And today I'm going to talk about certain things that can inhibit or help you with your credibility, right? The quality of being trusted. So trust is a function of character and competence. And today I'm going to talk about character, but competence is obviously just as important, right? Michael is as honest as they come, but would you trust Michael with a knee replacement? No? Sorry, Michael. I wouldn't either. So competence is important, but I'm going to again talk about character. So in relation to trust, that comes down to two keywords, I think. It's integrity and intent, right? So do you have the integrity, and is your intent clear, right? So with intent just helps people understand where you're coming from, and it helps people, and if they know that you have good principles and you're looking out for their best interest, they're going to tend to trust you more, right? For example, if I invite Brenda, I say, hey Brenda, let's grab lunch, I want to see how you're doing. She shows up and I try to pitch her. How's she going to feel, right? She's going to be like, whoa, you didn't tell me this, right? But if I say, hey Brenda, let's get coffee, I want to show you what I do for work, learn a little bit more what I do, maybe you might be interested. If not, maybe you'll find someone that does, right? Or know someone who does. So the intent is really important. And integrity is obviously very, very important, right? And from what I found, integrity, I'm not going to define it, but it's composed of three different things, and they're very, very interrelated. The first one is the C. It's congruence, okay? A person has integrity when there's no gap between their intent and their behavior. When they're whole, when they're seamless, the same inside and out, that's what I call congruence, right? And congruence is what will ultimately generate and create credibility and trust. Does anyone have any examples? Okay, didn't think so. So Gandhi, right? Gandhi is, I think, one of the principal examples of congruence, right? He said something along the lines of, my life is my message, right? All of my actions run into one another, right? be the change you want to see in the world, right? He's the epitome of just being congruent to your principles.
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa, that's a great one.
Cesar Chavez, he was willing to go to jail or to go out and work in the field just like the people that he was advocating for.
Right.
Yeah, Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King is another good example. And Gandhi, he never ran for any political position or any leadership position, but just by being congruent, he's able to change the world, right? That's pretty phenomenal, right? The guy didn't even do anything. He didn't even eat, and he was able to do all these things, right? I'm just kidding. So congruence is huge. Now, by demonstrating congruence, again, people will look at you and say, wow, this guy believes in his principles, and they'll look at you and be like, that guy's dependable, he's strong, right? So that's a small piece of integrity. The second piece is humility. And I think this is one in our culture it's really, people have misconceptions about what humility is and why it's a good thing, right? So a humble person, in my opinion, is concerned about what is right, not being right. Right? I'm gonna say that again. A humble person is more concerned about what is right than being right. They're more concerned about acting on good ideas than having them. They're more concerned about embracing the new truth as opposed to defending an outdated position, right? And just as importantly, a humble person is more concerned about recognizing contribution than being recognized, right? Now, being humble, some people think that as being weak, reticent, or self-effacing, right? But that's not what being humble is, right? Being humble is just recognizing principle and putting it above yourself. The opposite of humility is arrogance and pride. And that's when people put themselves above principle and others, right? So humility is very important. And just because you're humble doesn't mean you can't negotiate, you can't be demanding. But in our culture, a lot of people think of humility as a weakness, but really it's quite the opposite. I read a book called From Good to Great by Jim Collins, and they did years and years of research on the best companies in the world and what made them great. And when they looked at the CEOs, they surprisingly found out that all the CEOs were very, very humble people, as opposed to very charismatic people, right? Now, the third piece of integrity is courage, right? Integrity includes courage to do the right thing. Have any of you guys heard knowledge is power? Have you guys heard that term?
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry to say, it's not true, right? How many of you, be honest, are trying to lose weight, right? I'm pretty sure most of you know how to lose weight, but you gotta act on it, right? So I think knowledge times action is power. So again, integrity includes courage to do the right thing. Just because you know all these awesome things doesn't mean you're gonna change the world. You gotta act on it, right? So just an example, it's tough to have integrity because you have to have the cojones to do it, right? So, simple example, Andy Roddick, one of the greatest American tennis players as of late, who just retired recently. He was playing in a tournament for the championship, and his opponent hit the ball, and the ref called it out. And Andy actually won the tournament on that point. But Andy said, whoa, 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 the ball was actually in. Let's redo the point. Sure enough, Andy actually lost the tournament, right? But because he demonstrated integrity, he's getting trust dividends now. So every time the refs make a bad call and Andy complains about it, they know they made a mistake, right? So he's getting the benefit of the doubt now because of his integrity. Same thing with Warren Buffett. He's demonstrated integrity for several years, and he got into a little bit of a scandal recently, but basically people gave him the benefit of the doubt because he has no reason to cheat anyone or anybody, right? So now that we realize what integrity is composed of, the question now is, how do we increase our integrity or increase our credibility through our actions, right? So there's three simple things that are